Do gangstalkers get away with what they're doing? They hide their activity. We're going to talk about it. The controversial question of how many people know about gangstalking is always on the targeted individual's mind. How many of these people are blind to what's happening? How many people really know? Well, I think it's a lot more than some would suspect. But there are a lot of ways that this whole situation is obfuscated, okay? And during the MK Ultra, well, at least what they disclosed anyway, they experimented on prisoners, people with addiction problems, so they could easily discredit them. And I think that a lot of the things that go along with what the targeted individual experiences, well, it's similar. Because all the things that are done to them, well, they look just like symptoms of mental illness. Disinformation can move people to dislike the targeted individual. And there's always the money, right? Oh, yeah. Everybody likes money. And targeted individuals don't usually live in, ritzy neighborhoods because, well, they get workplace harassment. They get a lot of hindrances in their life. They don't usually have a lot of money. I've heard of some exceptions, but the stuff that they experience is usually a little different. But after the disinformation campaign gets pumped out, people are more than willing to take cash to harass the target. It's not always like that, though. There's also the spiritual aspect of this stuff, which brings into mind 2 Corinthians 4:4, the God of this world has blinded the minds and the inhabitants of the world to the gospel and to a lot of other things. Because if people knew their spiritual need, well, things would be a lot different. I don't think that the people that you're dealing with that are involved in your gang stalking, if they knew they were going to be judged for this stuff, they really believe that, I think they would stop. I really do. And then there's the other lie that, that it wouldn't really matter, that they're going to be judged anyway. And a lot of times people are led to believe that they're condemned. I know that when people get into witchcraft or the occult, they'll have a lot of weird rituals. The Skull and Bones has some pretty weird stuff involved in that. And I think that's the same thing. They want these people to feel as though they have been sealed, that there's nothing that they can do, and that God has, kind of blotted their name off of his list. And that's another technique. But getting back to the idea that the world is kind of being blindfolded to this whole thing. It is. And I've talked about how psychiatry is used in that whole obfuscation campaign because the symptoms that people have are right along the lines of, the criteria for people who are having delusions, who have schizophrenia or factitious disorder, and you'll get that. If you tell someone who doesn't know, who's never experienced or been exposed to any type of phenomena or gang stalking about what you're experiencing, they're going to start to wonder if you're wacko, okay? They're going to start to wonder if you're just imagining all these things because you have that split. You have the change in stimuli. Right? And that's a trick because people who don't experience this kind of stuff, their world is a lot more logical. Okay? Things, they progress in a logical order. It's like when someone who's a targeted individual gets their house broken into, right? Was anything stolen? No. Was there vandalism? No. Oh, okay. What'd they do? Well, they moved some things around and put them on the coffee table just to let me know that they can get into my house. Oh, so who are these people? Well, they're the gang stalkers, or it's the government, or And, usually this person has been harassed in other areas to where they're failing at their job. They might be experiencing workplace harassment. And, it's just classic, because it looks like these things are turning into excuses for why there's a lack of progress or productivity in the targeted individual's life. And they are slowly taken down in that type of downward spiral. And it just looks like mental deterioration. And I think that's it in a nutshell. I think targeted individuals are discredited. The criteria for psychiatry is used. And then the people that are in on it, well, they're either believing disinformation and they're getting paid, or, well, they're the evil ones. Yeah. So they don't care, right? And there's a lot of mystery around that too. But you got to remember that if you're dealing with someone who's not experienced this kind of stuff, you have to know that their world is different. They are, they're getting different stimuli. They're not dealing with this weird stuff. And they're going to really try to figure out what your problem is if you start talking about it. And the other people that know, well, they're just going to mess with you. They're going to draw you out into conversations, and they're going to gaslight you, and they're going to harass you and get off on it and feed on you. And, well, the usual type of activity. But that's what it is. That's how it is hidden. And I've talked about the fact that there are a lot of people who have been diagnosed with mental illness who are just simply being harassed, gaslighted, tortured, spiritually attacked, experimented on, all that kind of stuff. And it's classic. When they try to get help, well, they just look like they're crazy. They're losing it. They're suffering from a mental disorder. They're making excuses. They're sandbagging. And they can't get help. And it can be done to them in full view, because no one will suspect. I'm feeling the need for a little soundbite. I don't know. I don't see why all these people would be haggling you. That doesn't make sense. What are they getting out of it? They want to drive you crazy? Well, what, you don't even know them? The people at your job are doing what? They're coughing at you? What is... Everybody coughs. Oh, it's something else. I don't know. I think you're making excuses. I think you're starting to go crazy. And that's another important aspect of gangstalking, is that these techniques, that a lot of the methods that are used to harass targeted individuals can be written off, right? They change, they're aggressive, and then they get more covert, and they're just hidden. And when a target becomes sensitized to the methods, and that sense of tension is built up where people are kind of anticipating these things, and after they are, well, they're groomed for it and they start to expect it, then they react. And the people around them, they don't know. They're not sensitized to it, whether it's, the off-key whistling or keywords that can be thrown into any conversation around the targeted individual, behaviors, the coughing, whatever. Different colors and stuff, whatever it is that the target has been sensitized to, they can be incorporated and no one else is going to suspect. They're not going to look at it as anything, and it's just going to further discredit the target and make them look nuts. And it works very well. Getting to the point where you just don't care is almost is really the only thing you can do, because it's going to happen. It's completely out of your control. And obsessing over the idea of getting proof, well, it can turn into kind of a fun game, I guess, if you got a little body cam or whatever. You can always hope Some of the videos out there are better than others. I remember old Divergent Abe had one with somebody with God, what was that? The back end of the vehicle was open, driving away. I thought that was just hilarious. I've seen some videos that they were more convincing than others, but really, I don't know. If you have to do that, I guess you can play that game. But just having it in a protocol to where you are processing that information correctly, knowing that people are not going to get away with it indefinitely, not getting excited about it, and just not letting it get to you is crucial, because you can't stop them, you can't control it, and unless it really gets bad to the point where maybe at your workplace where it affects the way your boss sees your performance or something, and it's something that's real deviant, well, it just has to be ignored. It just has to be one of those things that is going to happen and you just don't care. I grew up in a house where I dealt with all kinds of innuendos and stuff like that, even when I was a little kid. And so I kind of had the experience to get over it. And I don't care if somebody's going to try and use something on me. It doesn't work unless they really get in my face. And that's the whole idea, too. You want people to come out of the dark. You want them to be obvious, because gaslighting is a huge problem. And if you're one of those targeted individuals who's looking for it all the time and you're just ready to explode when it happens, or you're obsessing over trying to get proof and everything, it might not work out for you, because then you're gonna give them what they want first, and you're just being, you're prepped. You're prepped for that. And everybody has bad days. I do. And I just don't want to deal with it sometimes. And they know somehow. I think it's more of a spiritual thing that, when it rains, it pours. And if you get to that point where you get knocked off, balance, and your mental faculties start to go, and you start to get, you start to get going and you get mad. And one thing turns into three things, and then it gets out of control. And then they'll come in with all that stuff, and you can't let it happen. You just can't react to it. You have to have those protocols in place. And once you do, it's going to stop happening, or it's going to be obvious to the point where it's going to work in your favor, because everybody needs those affirmations. When you're singled out and isolated and being attacked, that's no fun, and you need to know you're not crazy. So that's how it's done, guys, and you don't want to let them do that to you. You don't want them to be able to push your buttons, get you to react. Other people that don't know, they're just going to look at you like you're crazy. And that's the whole idea. These people, they've been blinded to it. They're not experiencing the stuff that you are. And that's the classic methodology, hidden in plain sight. Guys, be good to yourselves. Be safe.